Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 65, starting at the bottom of 64b. The last few words are Rav Yehuda, Shadar le Kurbana. The Gemara relates that Rav Yehuda sent a gift, now turning to the top of 65a with the words La'avidarna beyom edam. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda sent a gift. La'avidarna beyom edam amar yadana be lo palach le'avodah zarah. Amar le Rav Yosef v'atanya eze gerto ishav koch gimel alav b'nem shvosh chaverim shelo lavod avodah zarah ki tanei lach yosui. Rabbi Yehuda sent a gift to a Gentile, a non-Yehudi, named Avidarna, on their festival day. Rabbi Yehuda said, I know of him that he does not worship idols, so he is not considered a non-Yehudi with regard to the prohibition against giving a gift to a non-Yehudi on their festival. Rabbi Yosef said to him, but isn't it taught in Braita, who is a ger toishav? It is anyone who has accepted upon himself before three chaverim not to worship idols. Avidarna had not accepted this upon himself before three chaverim. Chaverim means chaver is someone who is well versed in the law and practices the religious rights and the laws of the Torah meticulously and diligently. So Rabbi Yehuda replied to him, when that Braita is taught with regard to the mitzvah to sustain him. Ve'amar, meaning it says who is considered a ger toshav. It's someone who made a proclamation in front of three devout Yehudim. That's talking about a ger toshav that needs to get sustained financially. Then he needs something more official. But just to give someone a gift, it's fine. Just if you know that they don't worship idols, then you can just give it to them. That's what Yehuda seems to be saying here. Rav Yosef further objected, but doesn't Rabbi Bar Chana say that Rabbi Yochanan says a ger toishav for whom 12 months passed without him circumcising himself is considered as a heretic of the non-Yehudim, and certainly this Avidarna is not circumcised. How do they know? I guess they know. Rabbi Yehuda replied there, Rabbi Yochanan is referring to a case where the non-Yehudi who desired to become a ger toishav took it upon himself to become circumcised, but he recanted and did not circumcise himself. In such a case, it is assumed that he did not circumcise himself due to apostasy. Generally, in the case of the ger toishav who did not take this upon himself, this is not required of him. Amar yadana be telo palach le'avodah zarah azal ashkei diati bad safare bevarda v'kain anzoy no esaru mois kame Amar le islechu kai gavlen le alma deate Amar le titana difa tfei mehai Adifa tfei mehai Amar le tfei mehai mihava Amar le atun ika alaichu amta di malchuta anan lo teheve alan amta di malchuta Amar le anami hamae mata di malchuta ikalai. The Gemara relates that Rabbah brought a gift to a minister named Bar Sheshach on their festival day. Rava said, I know of him that he does not worship idols. Rava went to him and found him sitting up to his neck in rose water. Okay, it's a little bit mature content, so brace yourself here. Rava went to him and found him sitting up to his neck in rose water, and naked women for hire were standing before him. Okay. What was Rava doing there? And why did he... I don't know. But anyway, Bar Sheshach said to him, do you have anything as fine as this in the world to come? I can imagine him, he's in his jacuzzi there. He's got some women there that are, you know what I mean? And then he's just hanging out, smoking his weed or whatever, his pipe, his opium, and he's just chilling there and whatever. So he says, do you have anything as fine as this in the world to come? Rava said to him, ours is better than this. Bar Sheshach said to him, is there anything finer than this? Rava said to him, you have the fear of the government upon you. We will not have the fear of the government upon us in the world to come. Bar Sheshach said to him, as for me, in any event, what fear of the government is there upon me? I am a powerful man. Adiat viatahu, pristaka de malka, amalekum nikabay la malka. I mean, what I'm thinking is, the Talmud could have left out the thing with the naked prostitutes. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why they had to mention that. They could have said he was sitting in the jacuzzi that was neck and rose water, and he was having a good time. Why did they have to mention that? I don't get that. Anyway, let's continue. Adias yasahu pristaka le malka molekum gabai le malka ina de biade na bai biade lo mishuda de amale rava amen bekainech de Bar Sheshach. While they were sitting, a certain royal officer came and said to Bar Sheshach, rise, as the king requires you to appear before him. As he was going out, he said to Rava, may any eye that wishes to see evil upon you burst, as it is clear that you are correct. Rava said to him, amen. And then Bar Sheshach's eye burst. That's strange. Maybe he wanted to see evil upon Rava, maybe. Okay. Amav papi ibayel elememra lemaiko benos barach mikavatecha itzva shegal libinecha bechetem ofir amav nachmar yitzchak ibayel elememra le mehacha aino rata Elohim zulatcha yaseh bimchakelo. Rav Papi said, Rava should have said, a response to him from the verse, king's daughters are among your favorites. At your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir, Psalms 45:10, indicating that in the world to come, the daughters of kings will serve the Jewish people. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said he should have said in response to him from here, the reward of the Yehudim will be such that no eye has seen it, God, aside from you, who will do for those who await him. Isaiah 64, verse 3. The Mishnah teaches, if the non-Yehudi hired him to do other work for him, even if he said to him while he was working with him, transport the barrel of wine used for a libation for me from this place to that place, his wage is permitted, meaning it's permitted for the Yehudi to derive benefit from the money. The Gemara notes that this formulation of the Mishnah indicates that this wage is permitted even if the non-Yehudi did not say to him to transport the barrel of wine toward evening, meaning toward the end of his workday. Uremini hasaycher sapoil uleitote erev marlo ever bishel yayin esach mimakom lemakom secharo mutar tama damar leitote erev in kuli yoma la. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from a Braita. In the case of one who hires a laborer, and toward evening the employer said to him, transport this barrel of wine used for a libation from this place to that place, his wage is permitted. By inference, the reason for this ruling is that the employer said it to him toward evening, and therefore, yes, it is permitted, as it is clear that he has completed the labor for which he is being paid, and the wage is not for moving the barrel. But if this happened during the entire day, not toward evening, this would not be permitted. Amar Abaye, ki tenan nami masnisin davar leitot de'erav tenan, Rava amar lo kashya, ha'adam alei haver li me'ach chaviot, ve'me'ach prutot. Abaye said, when we learn this in the Mishnah as well, we learn this with regard to the case where the employer said this toward evening. Rava said, this is not difficult. This case, where the wage is forbidden, if it was not toward evening, is a case where the employer said to him, transport 100 barrels for me, for 100 prutot, in which case moving all of the barrels is considered a single task. And if one of the barrels was wine used for libation, the entire wage is forbidden. That case in which the wage is permitted in any event is a case where the employer said to him, transport each barrel for me for 1 prutum, such that each barrel is its own task. Yatanya soiches poel. Yomar hevet li mea chavios b'mea prutos. V'nimtzit chavios yaim nesbunehen. Stachoi os chavis b'pruta. V'nimtzit chavit shel yaim nesich b'nehem scharo mutar. And so it is taught in Braita in the case of one who hires a laborer and said to him, transport 100 barrels for me for 100 prutot, and a barrel of wine used for a libation was found among them. His wage is forbidden, but if the employer said to him, transport each barrel for 1 pruta, and there was a barrel of wine used for a libation among them, his wage is permitted. The Mishnah teaches, with regard to a non-Yehudi who rents a Yehudi's donkey to carry wine used for libation on it, its rental fee is forbidden. The Gemara asks, why do I need this additional clause? This is the same as the first clause, as the principle is the same. Only the example is different. The Gemara answers it was necessary to teach the latter clause in order to teach that if the non-Yehudi rented the donkey to sit upon it, even if the non-Yehudi placed his jug of wine used for a libation on it, its rental fee is permitted. Lememra delagin lav dina hu leotove. The Gemara asks, is this to say that it is not the legal right of the renter to place a jug upon the donkey, and therefore placing the jug on the donkey was not included in the rental? And the Gemara raises a contradiction to this from a Braita. With regard to one who rents a donkey to ride on, the renter may place on it his garment, his water jug, and his food for that journey. Beyond those items, the donkey driver who would take the renter on the journey may prevent him from placing anything on the animal by saying that he does not wish to further burden the donkey. The donkey driver may place on it barley and hay for the donkey and his food for that first day alone. Beyond those items, the renter may prevent him from placing anything on the animal on the grounds that it will inhibit its progress. Amar Abaye lehi delog indilahu liot vemia ila motivle mi amrina le nahile agad delegina to. Abaye said, granted that it is the legal right of the renter to place a jug upon the donkey, but in any event, if he does not place it on the donkey, can we say to the driver, deduct the fee of his jug from the rental, since the donkey driver will not deduct any amount from the rental fee if he does not place the jug on the donkey. Therefore, even if he does place it, the rental fee is not forbidden. Hey Chidami, למזבן חמר נמי לעכב, איזה לא שכיח למזבן סוחר נמי לא לעכב. With regard to the main point of the Braita, the Gemara asks, what are the circumstances if locations in which one is liable to purchase provisions on the way are common? The donkey driver can also prevent the renter from putting provisions on the donkey for the entire journey. And if locations in which one is able to purchase provisions along the way are uncommon, the renter cannot prevent the driver from taking his provisions for the journey either. Amar Papa lo tzricha l'shchiach lemitrach ulemizban me'avana le'avana chamar darke lemitrach ulemizban socher lav darke lemitrach ulemizban. The Papa said, no. It is necessary to teach this halacha with regard to a case where locations in which is able to go to the trouble of purchasing provisions are common between station and station, meaning one can find locations to purchase provisions along the way, but only with difficulty. A donkey driver is accustomed to troubling himself to purchase provisions along the way, so it is not permitted for him to pack provisions for the entire journey on the donkey. A renter is not accustomed to troubling himself to purchase provisions along the way, so he is allowed to pack all his provisions. Starting a story which will immediately after this line go to 65b. So I'm going to take a little break here, come back after the break, and continue on with that line onto 65b. Vital, back from the break. Now we are last line of 65a. Avodah de Rav Acha berei de Rav Ika. The Gemara relates that the father of Rav Acha, the son of Rav Ika, and now we turn to 65b, top of the page with the words Have shafech lehu chamra legoyim. The father of Rav Acha, the son of Ika, Have shafech lehu, top of 65b now. Have shafech lehu chamra legoyim, azal me'abed lehu me'aboro. Piavle kulche viagoto amaolo le nabaye amalahu ki katarach betera katarach. The father of Rav Acha, son of Rav Ika, would pour wine, which he sold to non-Yehudim, into their wineskins and go and ferry them over the crossing, and they would give him the jugs in which the wine had been stored as payment. The jugs that the wine had been stored in were included in the sale. And the non-Yehudim would pay him by returning the jugs. People came and told Abaye that Rabbi Ika was the father of Rav Acha, the son of Rav Ika. I guess they made a mistake here, because people came and told Abaye that Rav Ika was accepting. No, it's the father of Rav Acha Maybe it is the father. I wonder why they call Avodah de Acha B'rei Rav Ika. The father of Rav Acha, son of Rav Ika, is Rav Ika. So why do they say the father of him? I guess it was Rav Ika. Yeah. Rav Ika was accepting a wage from the wine of non-Yehudim. That's a good question. Why does the Gemara say the father of Rav Acha, son of Ika? Why didn't it say Rav Ika? The father of the son, the father of Rav Ika, the father of Acha, son of Ika, maybe it was his adopted father. In other words, Rav Ika I don't understand. People came and told Abai that Rav Ika was accepting wage from the wine of non-Yehudi. Abai said to them, when he labored with permitted wine, since he was pouring kosher wine into the wineskins, and only subsequently the wine was rendered forbidden by being in the possession of the non-Yehudim. V'roitze b'kiyumo delo nitzru zehi Dematnite behadayu inami demaid pristike. In brackets it says pardiske behadayu. Gemara asks, but doesn't he desire the preservation of the wine and the wineskins, in that the wineskins should not be torn, as he would then need to return the jugs he received in payment? One does not pour new wine into old wineskins. Thought just reminded me of that. That wineskin should not be torn, as he would then need to return the jugs he received as payment. The Gemara answers, it is a case where he stipulated with the non-Yehudi purchasers that even if the wineskins, the Weinsteins and the wineskins, the wineskin, like Jonah and wineskin, were to tear it, it would be at their expense and not his, and he would keep the jugs in the event. Alternatively, it is a case where the non-Yehudi purchasers bought barrels with them so that they could pour the wine into them should the wineskins be torn. The Gemara asks, but didn't he ferry them over the crossing, which is laboring with forbidden wine? The Gemara answers, this is not a case where he was ferrying the wine over the crossing himself, as he made an arrangement with the ferrymen and said to the ferrymen initially that the latter would ferry the buyers and the barrels without payment. Alternatively, it was a case where he held special signal knots in collusion with the ferryman that he would ferry these people without payment. In any event, he was not laboring for them himself. And that's the end of that new Mishnah. Yayin nesach shenafal al gabe anavim yadichen vehen mutaros vim hayu mevukaos asuros nafal al gabe teinin o al gabe timarim im yesh bahem benoten tamaso umase baitos benzunen shehevi gerois besfina venisham tabra chavis shel yain nesech ונפל על גביהן, ושאל לחכמים והתירו. Okay, Mishnah says, in the case of wine used for a libation that fell, meaning Nesach, it's forbidden wine, alright? Forbidden wine that fell on grapes. So you have grapes, obviously they're kosher, but wine, idolatrous wine fell on it. One rinses them and they're permitted. But if the grapes are cracked, they're forbidden. In a case where the wine fell on figs or dates, if there is sufficient wine in them to impart flavor, they're forbidden. And there was an incident involving Baitus ben Zunan, who transported dried figs in a ship, and a barrel of wine used for a libation broke and fell on them. And he asked the sages as to the halacha, and the sages deemed the figs permitted. This is the principle. Kol she'hana'ato benoten tam asu, kol she'eno behana'ato benoten tam mutar, kegon chometz shenafal al gavei grisin. This is the principle. Anything that benefits from a forbidden item imparting flavor to it, meaning the forbidden item contributes a positive taste to it, is forbidden, and anything that does not benefit from a forbidden item imparting flavor to it is permitted, such as forbidden vinegar that fell into split beans, as the flavor imparted by the vinegar does not enhance the taste of the beans. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara, Zog de Gemara, Zog de Gemara, Zog de Gemara, Zog de Gemara. Meister the stole, Chusre Nesra, Hokatani. Im noten tam livgam hu mutar, Maseh nami bebaitus ben Zunin, שהיום מביא כל רויס בספינו ונשתב חובי של יין נסך ונפל על המין ובא מעשה לפני חכם והתירם. The Gemara asks with regard to the incident related to in the Mishnah, was an incident cited to contradict the halacha stated immediately before it? The Gemara answers, the Mishnah is incomplete. And this is what it is teaching. If the wine imparts flavor to the detriment of the mixture, the food is permitted. And there was also an incident involving Baitus ben Zunan, who was transporting dried figs in a ship, and a barrel of wine used for libation broke and fell on them. And the incident came before the sages, and the sages deemed the figs permitted because the flavor given by the wine did not enhance their taste, but was instead to their detriment. Ahu, Kri, or in brackets says Karya, the Gemara relates, there was an incident involving a certain heap of wheat, upon which a barrel of wine used for a libation fell. Rava permitted selling it to non-Yehudim, as deriving benefit from it is not prohibited. Eit ve Rabbi bar Levi lerove. בגד שעבד בכלאיים, הרי זה לא ימכרנו לגוי, ולא יעשה מרדס לחמור. אבל עושה אותו תככין למת מצווה. Rabba bar Levi raised objection to Rabba from a Braita with regard to a garment in which there are diverse kinds. Prohibited mixture of wool and linen have been lost. Meaning, it is known that linen fibers became mixed into a woolen garment, but they cannot be detected and removed. One may not sell the garment to a non-Yehudi, nor fashion it into a saddle cloth for a donkey. But one may make it into shrouds for a corpse, with no one to bury it, as a corpse is not obligated in the observance of mitzvot. Legoi my time dimmas elevon Israel hachanami esvon esvon Israel. Rabba bar Levi asked, what is the reason that it is not permitted to sell it to a non-Yehudi? Perhaps he will come to sell it to a Yehudi who will not know that it is forbidden. Here too, with regard to the wheat, the non-Yehudi purchasers may come to sell it to a Yehudi who is prohibited from consuming it. Hada שראה למטחינו ולמפינו ולזבונינו לגויים שלא בפני ישראל. Rather than retracted his decision and permitted grinding the wheat and baking bread with it and selling it to non-Yehudim, not in the presence of Yehudim. In this manner, Yehudim will not be likely to buy bread from the non-Yehudim, as the bread of non-Yehudim is forbidden to Yehudim. Tanan yayin nesach shenafal al gayin navim yadicha v'hemutas v'hem hayu mivukaos asuros mivukaos in shem mivukaos la amar Rav Papa shani chite hoyil v'agav tziraihu kimukaos damyan. We learned in the Mishnah, in the case of wine used for a libation of fallen grapes, one rinses them and they are permitted. But if the grapes were cracked, they are forbidden. The Gemara enters, if the grapes were cracked, they are forbidden. But grapes that are not cracked are not forbidden. If so, what is the cause for concern in the case where wine spilled on the wheat? It should be sufficient to rinse the wheat. Our Prophet said, wheat is different, because also wheat, it absorbs it. Right? The wine goes into it. Depends which kind of wheat, but the wine gets soaked into it. Anyway, Rav Papa says wheat is different since because of its slits, its status is similar to that of grapes that are cracked. I wouldn't even go to that. But if you put liquid on it, it absorbs. I think it would absorb some of the wine. It didn't just roll off. But that's just me.